Audi Q7s have always been easy recommendations for buyers looking at three-row luxury crossovers. They're very refined, they're techy, they're safe, and they've never looked like they're trying too hard. But they've also been a bit meh, which in fairness is kind of par for the course for this segment. But that changes with this new Audi SQ7. This isn't just a more powerful or sportier Q7, and not just any V8, this one has 500 horsepower and 568 pound-feet of torque. So whether you want to haul kids or something else, this guy looks up to the job. For 2020, all Q7s receive a slight facelift, but this SQ7 is a new offering. Even if you missed the badges on this one, you can still spot a Q7 on the street by its unique single-frame grille with platinum double slats. It kind of looks like a mask. And there's even a more aggressive bumper with a unique front splitter. Along the sides, there are 21-inch twin V-spoke wheels and brushed metal look mirror caps. Out back, there's 4 round exhaust outlets, plus a reworked diffuser. It's pretty subtle stuff overall, but I really do like the 15mm lower ride height because it adds a little aggression. Let's go for a drive. Like I said, the Q7 is a pretty well-known quantity at this point. It's one of Audi's best-selling models, and this second-gen model has been on sale since 2016. It's a great all-around vehicle if you need 3 rows, but it doesn't have a ton of emotion in its standard form, which is why it's nice to have so much extra power and finesse from this SQ7. Previous to this, if you wanted a little bit more oomph, you were probably better off going to a BMW or Mercedes dealer. This SQ7, it changes that. Audi hasn't just shoehorned in a 4-liter turbo V8 and called it good. They've comprehensively updated the SQ7's driveline, suspension, and steering to cope with 165 more horsepower, and most importantly, nearly 200 pound-feet of torque, more than you could get with a 3-liter turbo that's been the Q7's big engine to this point. As you'd expect, Audi hasn't just dropped a big old V8 under the hood and gone for beers. The retuned Quattro all-wheel drive sends 60% of its torque rearward as standard and can sling it to all 4 corners as necessary. In addition, there's a new adaptive air suspension, which is firmer, the brakes, which are larger up front, and it's also rejiggered the transmission for quicker shifts. Hey, anything you can do to make this 5,300-pound boy dance is good news in my book. And hey, if you doubt that something this big can hustle around corners as well as straights, remember this SQ7 is built atop the same modular architecture as Porsche's Cayenne and Lamborghini's Urus. And those SUVs, well, they can flat out belt. The SQ7 is no different, hitting 60 in just 4.3 seconds, which makes it quicker than a Cayenne GTS. Top speed is limited to 155 on standard summer tires, or 130 if you opt for all seasons. And if you need a bit more handling prowess, Audi will sell you a sport pack that adds a 48-volt active roll stabilization system and a rear Quattro Sport differential to help you power out of corners quicker. At $5,900 bucks, it's indulgent, but then again, so is this whole thing. And thanks to its killer optional Bang & Olufsen 3D audio system and laser headlights, this high-end prestige model is knocking on 100 grand. Speaking of indulgent, the SQ7 gets a few updates to its cabin too, including a perforated 3-spoke steering wheel and heated and cooled quilted leather sport seats. That last bit is a bigger deal than you might think. For ages now, if you wanted Audi's grippier sport seats, you couldn't get ventilation. Yes, I know seat coolers add weight, and weight is the enemy of performance, but let's be real here for just a second. This is a 3-row SUV with over 70 cubic feet of cargo space. It is not a Miata. So anything that Audi can do to keep my ass in place and cool, calm, and collected so that I can slay the winding road ahead of me, well, that is what I wanted to do. The rest of the cabin is pure modern Audi, meaning very nicely put together and top-notch when it comes to cabin tech. Audi's got the only 2-touchscreen infotainment system I've ever liked, and while it takes a while to become familiar, it's snappy, configurable, and incredibly powerful, as is its virtual cockpit gauge cluster. Of course, with great power comes great consumption. EPA estimates call for 15 miles per gallon city, 21 highway, and 17 combined. Yikers. Let's talk engine noise for just a second. Audi has wisely fitted this V8 with a switchable exhaust so that it can be loud or quiet when you need it to. What I like is that it's nice and throaty. Unfortunately, it sounds like it's muffled underneath a blanket. See, Audi doesn't quite understand what Jag does and AMG does, which is that Americans like their cars really, really loud sometimes. I wish there was another mode that really cranked it up to 11. As it is, this, well, it's probably an 8. Now, I mentioned that this thing is good for towing, but I do want to be clear. It can handle up to 7,700 pounds, which is generous, but it's actually the same rating as the 3-liter Q7. No matter, I still think with more power and bigger brakes, this is the tow rig of choice. So that's the new SQ7. It's luxurious, it's way more powerful, and thankfully, it's got significantly more soul than a standard Q7. At 100 grand, you'd expect for it to be a lot more vehicle, and thankfully, it delivers. So which would you rather have? This SQ7, a BMW X7 M50i, or a Mercedes GLS 580? Let me know in the comments, and if you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you want even more impressions about this Audi, check out theroadshow.com.